All right, everyone. This was something that somebody brought up actually on yesterday's live stream. Link in the description, archived, of course, talking about the concept of agro-terrorism. That is the sapping of an enemy nation's food supply using various viruses or other pathogens. This happened recently. A couple of Chinese agents actually came into the United States with a Fusarium wilt virus, actually, which can be devastating to certain crops. They've been bioengineered sometimes to be resistant to Fusarium wilt, as well as other forms of wilt and other viruses, but they're not all resistant to it. And it seems like China was attempting to deploy effectively a bioweapon on the United States. That's probably what happened. We've seen a lot of bioweapons coming from China lately. Their biological weapons program is quite advanced, and it seems that that is the major methodology by which they will attempt to destroy the United States. As opposed to nuclear war or something like that, of course, you know, you can take potassium iodide and rebuild society. But if all of your plants are diseased, it's going to be a little bit more difficult to recover because everyone will starve. And so that's what I think happened in this particular instance. Now, we're not 100% sure, but it seems like it was part of their bioweapons program. Although I don't like the term agroterrorism. As you know, I prefer linguistics over many other subjects. I prefer simply biological warfare because that's effectively what it is. And I've got an anecdotal experience with regards to how capable the United States is actually, relatively speaking, with regards to trying to stop this sort of thing from happening. Years and years ago in my garden, I was planning to plant a certain crop of corn, and I got seeds off of eBay, actually. And they were from China. I didn't know this, of course, and I didn't end up planting them because I didn't have room. So that's why I didn't end up in fucking prison at the time. They were from China, and I got a knock on the door from somebody from the Department of Agriculture, of all places, asking about the seeds. And I showed in the pack, of course, you know, I hadn't planted any of them, so I'm like, you know, here it is, basically. The only corn that I grew that year, and it grew very well, by the way, I got locally, it was a Silver Queen, and it tasted like Frosted Flakes. It was that sugary. It was actually a little bit too sugary for me. My sister enjoyed it. Other people enjoyed it. I thought, nah, I think I'll go with Bantam next time or something like that. Just a standard corn. You know, something that you can grill. If you grilled Silver Queen, I guess it would marinate itself and become almost syrupy, actually. It's a little bit too sweet for me. But in my anecdotal experience, it was rather funny because I literally got visited by the Department of Agriculture because I had bought these seeds because they thought that I had planted them and that it might contain pathogens. So, at the very least, there's one government agency that's kind of taking its job seriously. And this is something that we do need to take seriously. And here's why. Not to be glib here, because I mean, that's kind of a funny story. But at the same time, if you were to have, you know, a virus imported, especially one that potentially is engineered, because China has done that recently. We saw that with COVID. You could have a devastating effect. Imagine that all of your grain wilts and dies, or that even like 90% of it wilts and dies, or your legumes or something like that. People would begin starving, and it wouldn't just affect the United States, by the way. And some of the libs will say, well, ha ha ha, you know, they'll be pro-China on the issue. Well, hey, asshole, what happens when the U.S. grain supply is cut 90% short? Number one, the poor in the country suffer. Number two, because you no longer have grain to export because you're going to have to absorb it all, you know, locally. Who else will starve? Oh, that's right. People in Ethiopia and Tanzania and places like that are reliant upon food shipments from the United States. Sounds lovely now, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, we only killed 100 million people or something like that. That's basically what would happen. It'd be a spiraling effect because it wouldn't just affect the United States. It would affect us top end. That would be the primary impact. The secondary impact is that the US would change the way in which it gives food shipments and stuff like that, and people in like a dozen different countries would begin starving. And keep in mind, China's the one doing this. This was probably centrally planned. It was probably not the result of just a couple of researchers bringing a sample over accidentally or something like that. China likes to be coy and play dumb and say, well, we didn't know that this was going on. This was unauthorized. Bullshit. You knew full well. You have a strictly hierarchical regime in which the party generally knows what's going on. You can't play dumb and pretend that you didn't know that this was happening. And it's big in the news right now because people are quite worried. And in this particular instance, it's not without good reason. In some cases, people worry about ghosts and phantoms and stupid shit, and they work themselves up into a frenzy thinking the world is going to end or something like that over literally nothing. In other cases, though, there is a very good reason to be worried. In this particular instance, I would say it is definitely the latter. If China successfully develops a bioengineered wilt fungus or something like that and introduces it successfully to the US grain crop or legumes or something like that, it could be devastating, absolutely devastating. It could cause untold hundreds of billions of dollars in damage to our economy. It could cause starvation, higher prices on various basic staple foods. Imagine not being able to get bread because, well, the wheat crop basically failed this year. There is no bread anymore. We talk about bread lines. Imagine that you don't even have any bread in the line. Our soup this year is basically just bone broth because, yeah, all the plants died. This could actually happen. Um, I have been always more worried about biological warfare than any other kind. Most people fixate on nuclear warfare. Biological warfare could be far more devastating. And so I don't really like the term agroterrorism. I would simply say biological warfare because that's more appropriate. And it's not just terrorism because it was centrally funded by the Chinese state. I can guarantee that. It's quite clear that that's what happened here. But how do we know that the fusarium was not modified genetically in some way? Maybe Chang the janitor decided to do that too. He's a very prolific individual. That's only semi a joke. That's the sad part. That's about all. Peace out.